Applying to a competitive specialty is not for the faint of heart, not just because you have to study hard, not just because you have to build your resume, and not just because you have no life to the point that you disappear off the internet for 3 years. My bad, guys. It's not for the faint of heart because of all those things, while also having to deal with the dark side of the process, the broken promises, the uncertainty, the headache, and the heartache, all for the 50-50 shot of living your dream. This is what it takes to match into the most competitive specialties in medicine. And this is how I matched into dermatology. This is basically like med school apps all over again, but this time the competition is even stiffer, because we're all freaking nerds. But what makes a specialty competitive? And what do med students who are interested in a competitive specialty have to do to get a spot? Competitiveness usually has to do with some combination of supply and demand, lifestyle, prestige, and compensation. Specialties like dermatology, plastic surgery, orthosurgery, neurosurgery, and others are so competitive because these factors drive people into the specialty, but there aren't enough spots to go around. Personally, I chose dermatology for a mix of selfish and selfless reasons. I have a lot of personal experiences with derm, maybe too many. I also find it rewarding and fun, and the compensation and work-life balance are great. So cool, you've set your sights on your competitive specialty, I've set my sights on dermatology. Where do we go from here, and what does it actually take to get in? Step one of this process is to humble yourself before this process humbles you. You're not owed anything. You're going up against the best of the best in the country and sometimes in the world, and everyone you're applying with seems like they walk on water. So once you've accepted that you and all of your competition are a bunch of gunners and tryhards, the next thing that you're gonna need to do is focus on, drumroll please, your scores. Because yes, they matter, and they matter a lot. I've talked at length on how to study hard and be the top of your class or close to it in undergrad, but of course, med school is a different beast. There are 3 main scores that you need to do well on. The first are your preclinical years of medicine. This is where you're studying from textbooks all day and what they call drinking out of the fire hose. It's basically college on steroids. That said, many med schools, including my own, have made the first 2 years pass-fail. So if everyone is equal after 2 years of medical school, what's left? What's left is the 3rd year of med school, which was probably the most regimented 12 months of my life. 3rd year is split into these blocks, which are 3 to 8 weeks each of which obviously covering a different topic in medicine. Everyone in med school is smart, but not everyone has the discipline to consistently grind day in and day out throughout this year, and this is your chance to set yourself apart. This is my daily schedule for my 3rd year. I was waking up daily at 3 to 4 a.m. I'd go to my apartment gym and go on an incline treadmill for about 50 to 70 minutes, doing 500-ish Anki cards a day. Next, I try to get ready as fast as possible so that I would not lose time, make it to my rotation early, and do whatever I could to be helpful for that day. I try to help the team, if possible, by prepping the patients or something to that effect. Be teachable, be enthusiastic, work hard, and don't say no to doing anything. So what do you do when you're off? I'm telling you, I cannot remember a single day throughout that whole 12-month period that I took the day off entirely to myself. Every single day was vast majority studying, going to the gym for sure, but other than that, working on research, volunteering, other leadership projects. You just can't afford to waste any time. But at least the strategy paid off. Thankfully, I honored all my rotations. But all of that, all of 3rd year is like a warm-up compared to the biggest, hardest, longest exam in all of med school, the USMLE Step 2 exam. This is a 9-hour exam on pretty much everything you've learned in the first 3 years of med school. At that point, I was studying a strict 12 to 14 hours a day, no exaggeration, and this is timed studying without messing around. I ended up scoring a 261 on the exam, which despite being pretty decent at around the 80th percentile, for competitive specialties, that's just barely above average, which just goes to show you how fierce the competition can be in these fields. So let's say you did better than I did. You honored all your rotations. You got a perfect, never before seen score on STEP. You're basically guaranteed an acceptance, right? Right? Nope. Another tough realization is that matching is neither purely scores-based, nor is it a pure meritocracy. In many ways, the system does work well and people do get in based off of merit. Other times, this whole process feels like a freaking episode of Game of Thrones. So how do we make sure we win this game? First, make connections. I know you hate doing it, I hate doing it. We got into this field to help people and not to schmooze. Tough luck, because unless your family member is the program director, you're going to have to cold call, network like crazy, and prove yourself to make those connections yourself. And once you get noticed, you have to work like crazy to prove that you deserve that recognition. Mentors and their letters of rec cannot run this race for you, but they can push you across the finish line if you and someone else are otherwise neck and neck. That said, just like someone can make you, it is even easier for them to break you. So you might be thinking, who would do that? Is it another gunner student who wants my spot? In my experience, it's actually usually not going to be a student that tries to tank your chances. I have seen some people try to make others look bad, and it never works out the way that person thinks it will, because residents, faculty members, they're smart and they can see right through it. But if it's not students, it's not gunners who are tanking your chances, then who could it be? The killers here, if they so choose, are actually other faculty members or residents. I've heard program directors act shocked to students who reach out to them after not matching, saying things like, "Oh my goodness, how could this have happened and how did you not match? You were the very next on our rank list," when in reality, that same faculty member or program director was the person who made them a do not rank at that program. I've heard faculty call other faculty at different institutions, basically saying, "Hey, this student is not good, don't take them," when the person making that call is that student's mentor. And I've heard of residents spreading false rumors about certain students so that they can decrease those students' chances of matching and thereby increase their favorite student's chance of matching at that program. And even though this is the vast minority, and it's not usually this crazy, you can see what I mean now when I say this whole process feels like Game of Thrones sometimes. And yes, if you're a bad student, if you're lazy, if you're dishonest, a lot of these things can happen to you and they can be deserved. But many of the time, they're not, and there's not always a good explanation for why they do happen. Just keep working hard, and remember, the best way to get back at anybody is hopefully having the last laugh. So somehow you've dodged the landmines. You've got the grades, you've made the connections. You've also done the research, volunteered, taken on leadership roles, done away rotations, done a gap year or 2 or 5, and jumped through the other million hoops that are necessary because you were dumb enough to like the skin or the bones or the brain or whatever. How do you get those precious interviews and turn them into a match for your dream specialty? First of all, these were the interviews that I was lucky enough to get during my cycle. You need to tell a story of who you are, why you're interested in a specialty, and why your experiences in research, volunteering, leadership, and others shaped your journey. And you have to be able to actually speak meaningfully about your experiences, because if you try to BS it during the interview, they will smell it easily. Programs are wising up to the fact that students are stat padding their resumes with nonsense publications that add no real value and that the student barely even worked on. They don't believe you when you say you were deeply invested in leading 8 organizations, each at 20 hours a week somehow, when you barely have time to wipe your own butt properly. It's great if you have a nice story, but you also need to show through your resume, your articulation of your resume, and through your demeanor that you are serious and ready to work hard, because residency is not a joke. It's a hard job and you need to prove that you're ready. The third thing is, and honestly probably the most important, because if you don't do this, all the other things go out the window, is being normal. Normal doesn't mean you're not allowed to be shy. Normal doesn't mean you have to fit into a cookie cutter personality. Normal just means you're not insufferable, you're not difficult to work with, you're not braggy, you're not creepy. Remember that class sizes are small, and if you're any of those undesirable things, then nobody wants to have you in their class size of 3 when you're gonna ruin the whole vibe of the entire program. So yes, this process overall is ridiculously taxing. I'm not here to sugarcoat it, and it might take more than one attempt. But if I could leave you with one thing, is that when it comes to chasing your dreams, it's okay to be a little bit delulu about it. Because if you want it bad enough, I'm sure you can find a way. Just make sure you back everything up with hard work. If this was helpful, please support me, like this video, subscribe, follow me on Instagram, and watch more videos. I miss you guys a lot, I love you a lot, and I'll see you soon. Peace.